Hello and welcome to another episode of Building Stuff Rocks. This is episode 4, and as you can see, I have uploaded the Angular 2 application we built last time to GitHub pages, and everything works as expected. And what I've did is basically followed this tutorial by Colin Eberhardt, who described how to use gulp and tslint and definitely typed with Angular 2. I've only done the gulp and tslint part, but I think he described it very good and very clean how to do a setup, and I want to show you how this is done. So I've created a gulp file that has a couple of tasks. The first one is clean, which deletes everything in the dist folder. Then a tslint, which runs a tslint on the application folder. Then a compile task that compiles all the TypeScript files and writes them to dist app. And then I'm copying the assets. That includes everything in the app folder that is not a TypeScript file, and the index.html and the style CSS. And then I'm copying all the libs from the node modules package to a lib package. And then I've created a serve task that lets us start the server and look at the application locally. And in the index.html, I have removed the reference to the node modules package. So I'm using everything that is in the lib. So I have to copy everything here from the node modules package, so it's present in the lib folder. Now everything is described in this tutorial. I will put a link to it in the description, and I think Colin has done a very good job. And there is one trick I had to do on GitHub pages. I've copied the index.html to a file called 404.html, and I want to show you why I did this. So when we switch to the GitHub pages branch, and we look at the files, and I'm going to remove the 404.html and commit this and then push. Then you can see that the application still works fine, but if I'm entering directly from this link, then I'm getting a 404 because, well, field/field/1 doesn't actually exist on the server. So what I've discovered is that you can basically copy your index.html to the 404.html, which will be served from GitHub pages. And that has basically the same effect. So everything that goes to an unknown path will be directed to this 404.html, which basically is our index.html. And this is what you want in a single page application, that everything goes to the index.html. So I think I can maybe make a symlink. Yeah, I always do it the other way around. Okay, and now let's see. Now this should work, I hope. And now let's refresh. It takes a while for GitHub to load the changes. Nope. We can look here. So there is the 404.html, and it should work any minute now. Okay, I think this doesn't work. So I hoped it works. Nope. Okay, so let's reset this back to the previous commit. All right, we did a push force, and now we changed the git history, and now nothing happened, and it should work again. Yeah, okay. Okay, so symlinks don't work, so you have to copy the file. But yeah, that's a little trick you can use so your Angular 2 application works on GitHub pages. Oh, okay, after rewatching the first segment, I had to investigate the GitHub pages and symlink issue, and I found this repository. And this basically says you need a no Jekyll file so that Jekyll is disabled, and then the symlink should work. So this is what we are going to try now. So I'm going to add a no Jekyll. How do you spell Jekyll? Jekyll file. And then we are going to remove the 404. And then we are adding the symlink back. Okay. Let's check. Okay, let's commit this. And push. All right. Now let's check again. Okay, this works, but maybe we should wait a little bit so the changes are updated to the repository. Okay. It looks like it's working. Okay, so you have to add this .nojekyll file, and then the symlink should work. But now on to what we have originally planned for this episode, and that is adding some Jasmine tests. So again, I will be following this guide on the Angular homepage, and hopefully at the end we will have some tests for our components. And I know our components are fairly small. I mean, there's nothing too complex going on here. But we will start now, because I'm quite certain that tests will be getting more complicated as we go, and setting up the test framework from the beginning is always a good idea. So I will be getting to work with this tutorial, and I will see you in a bit. Alright, I've done quite some stuff. I mean, maybe it doesn't look like much, but it took me a while. So first off, I've changed the gulp file a little bit. So now we have a dev directory and a prod directory. And that means that we have a production and a development mode. So our application will be built either in a development directory I call temp, or in a production directory dist. So that means if I start the server with gulp serve, then it will serve our application from the temp directory, as you can see here. And when I call it with -- production, it will serve it from the dist directory, as you can see here. And the difference is that, well, first off, when we're in the development mode, then the source maps are generated. So we can do this. We can inspect the code, and when you go to the source, you can see our TypeScript files here because they're in the source map files. So if we look at a source map file like this one, you can see the TypeScript code is in here. So then we can like debug our code. If we, for example, put a breakpoint here, then you can see that it stops at our breakpoint, and this is the TypeScript file. So this is the first difference. And then I'm using I'm copying also in the development mode the unit test HTML, which I will be explaining in a little bit. And then I'm using the minified libraries for the production mode, and the development libraries for the development mode. And of course, the unit test HTML is also watched when I'm starting the server in development mode. Okay, now let's look at the unit test HTML. I followed this guide on the Angular IO homepage, Jasmine Testing 101, and they suggested to create a unit test HTML file that imports all your unit tests. And I can also do a npm test that will basically start our server with the test argument, and then the server will be started and it redirects us directly to the unit test HTML. But of course I could also just call the website because it's the same server. But what I had to do is, when you look at the gulp file, you see that I had to blacklist the unit test HTML from inserting the browser sync snippet because it would execute all the tests twice. So I disabled it, and here you can see when you add the test argument, then it will use the unit test HTML as the start path. So I've written test for these components here, and I've created a spec file in the components directory. Oh, that's the wrong one. I'm in the temp folder. I have to go to the app folder. Yeah, you can see the spec files here. And if you look at one spec file, then you can see, well, first off, let's look at the component. It has a load fields method that loads the fields when the component is loaded. And it basically gets the fields from the field service and then assigns them to this attribute. And there is also a goToField method that navigates to the field page, which is executed on a click on a field. So, and now the spec looks like this. I have created a field service and a router mock, which is called spy in Jasmine. And I have instantiated a field list component class and passed the field service and router in the constructor. So now I have a field list object. And then I said when field service get fields is called, then return this promise, which will return an array of fields with one field with the ID of 1. And then I'm calling load fields, and then I expect, of course, that the fields in the field list component equals to exactly that list I have put in the promise. And then I'm calling goToField and check if our router has been called with the correct route parameters. And then I've also checking if when I call ng on init that the load fields method is called, so the fields get loaded. Yeah, and I've done this for the field page component and the tutorial list component and the tutorial page component. So I have 4 specs and I've added them all to this unit tests HTML. And as you can see, all the tests are being executed and are of course green. Okay, now that we have our test framework up and running and we can deploy to a production server, which is GitHub Pages at the moment, we can do actual work on our website. So the next step would be to add our tools and resources to a tutorial, or rather our field, and maybe put some real content on the website. But unfortunately, I don't have time for that in this episode, so we will do it in the next one, which will come out sometime next week because I'm now 1 week on vacation. So yeah, that's it for now, and see you next time.